Well, hi again. So let's continue where we have left. I have already told you actually. So if you look to this rectangle, this side is actually representing the amount of consumer surplus our consumer has per unit he or she buys, and this side is representing the total number of units that are bought. If for each specific unit the consumer surplus is specific, then this would always be 1. This length will always be 1. And in our case, it always will be 1, because we assume usually, even if I buy from the same pen twice, the actual money I would be willing to give to the second pen will be probably lower, because when I have one pen, second pen will be probably less valuable according to this view. Well, this is the view that this idea takes. So, however, this rectangle in the end represents the consumer surplus of the consumer 1. So this rectangle, 16 minus 5 times 1, which is $11, represents the consumer surplus of the second consumer. This rectangle will represent the consumer surplus of the third consumer, which is 10 minus 5 times 1, which is just $5. And this rectangle represents consumer surplus of the fourth consumer, which is 8 minus 5 times 1, which is 3. So fifth consumer doesn't have any consumer surplus, since the price he is willing to pay is same as the price that in the market. So basically, the total market surplus is sum of these rectangles, which is 15 plus 11 plus 5 plus 3. 34, basically. So now we will have a trick. Let's assume we have a rectangle, we have a triangle, which is and we are connecting the edges of these rectangles and get a triangle. If we get the area of the triangle like this, for example, and assume market price is P3, well, we got roughly the consumer surplus. The consumer surplus was actually the sum of these rectangles. So the actual consumer surplus is these rectangles minus these small triangles at the very edges of each rectangle. However, when actually this number of quantity of a good that is sold is as will increase, then these triangles will get smaller. You can try draw the same triangle with 20 units that are sold and have a specific rectangle for each 20 units. In that case, the triangles at the top will get smaller. So what does it mean? If triangles at the top get smaller, if we draw a similar type of, let's say, demand curve, basically with, again, rectangles to calculate the consumer surplus, that means when we take the area of the triangle, the mistake we will make by calculating the area of the triangle as a consumer surplus will be smaller. So if the number of units that are sold is sufficiently high, for example 500, that means the mistakes we make by taking the area of the triangle as the consumer surplus is negligible, and because of this, basically it is, and because it is usually in most analysis, market analysis made in the economics, the quantities that are sold and bought are already very large. It is assumed that, and the units are small. Actually, in extreme cases, the assumption is basically the units are infinitesimally small, which means actually instead of buying this pen, I can buy half a pen or even 1,000th of the pen. which might be the case when I borrow the pen, maybe. But so because of that, actually, the mistakes that is made by calculating this triangle instead of calculating the area of these rectangles one by one is considered negligible by the mainstream economics, and the consumer surplus is calculated by basically calculating this rectangle, the triangle, basically triangular area. So consumer surplus is basically in at least non-regulated market. In a regulated market, it will change. We will see in a minute. In a non-regulated market, it is the area between the y-axis line that is drawn, a horizontal line that is drawn from the equilibrium point, equilibrium price, and the demand curve, basically. So it is, in a way, you calculate it by subtracting the maximum price, the price at which the demand is zero, from the equilibrium price, multiply it with the quantity, equilibrium quantity, and then divide it by 2. So this area again. So in this case, it is 10 minus 5, which is 5 times 500 divided by, that is 2,500 divided by 2, which is $1,250 is consumer surplus. You can see that. So this is this side, this is this vertical side, and then we divide it to 2 because that's the way we calculate the area of the triangle. So when we calculate just this amount, we calculate the area of the rectangle, this rectangle, but triangle is the half of that area. That's why we divide it to 2. Okay, just a practice question you can do. Producer surplus. It is very similar with a small trick at the very end of it. So again, the idea comes from the viewpoint or the assumption that producers go to the market in their minds to sell their product at a minimum price. So, for example, if they sell this pen, they say, at least I need to get, for example, 2 Turkish lira from this pen. But interesting, actually, in United States, I am talking about this. If you ever go, I don't know whether a similar situation exists at anywhere in the Cyprus, but in Istanbul there is this famous place called Kapalı Çarşı, Grand Bazaar, and there, well, I was studying in German school of Istanbul during my high school and secondary school years, and once we had German friends, and they have gone there, and they go there, and in the Grand Bazaar, famously, people in the bazaar bargain with you, but usually they start the prices at a very high level, and you don't know the exact amount of the exact price of the thing you buy, because it really may look authentic or old. And in the end, some people reduce the price to half, some people even reduce the price 1/10 of it, but still the price is in some cases higher than the price you can pay for the same product at a different location. Because that's why I said to my friend, to my German friend, go and basically see the Grand Bazaar. It is interesting place, but don't buy anything from it. Buy it from alternative shops which I can show you. So if the producer is willing to sell this pen for $2 only, he might not tell you that way. By the way, he'll be bargaining. He might say, okay, I can never go below $5, but if you are around to leave, then he might go, he might reduce the price even further. But in his mind, he might have this minimum price. And if the price in the market is less than, more than this minimum price, if it is exactly this minimum price, in that case, if it is $3, in that case, producer won't have any surplus. But if the price is more than this minimum price, for example, $5, in that case, the producer will have $2 of producer's surplus. This is not profit, by the way. At the minimum amount, which is $3, I already should have some profits, and we will see how this profit might be calculated by the producer. But if it's okay for me, if $3 was okay for me and I got this $5, I got this extra $2 in addition to maybe the minimum profit amount that was okay for me. So if, for example, for me, $10 was the minimum price, but I was able to sell the product for $15. In that case, my surplus amount is $5. So let's go further. Again, this is similar. Let's say again space travel, and let's say $1 million is $900 million. Okay, $900 million is the price of the space travel. And there are 4 sellers who are willing to provide space travel, but the minimum price they are willing to get is different, maybe because their production costs are different, I don't know. The first one is willing to sell the space travel for $500, second one for $600, third one for $800, the fourth one for $900. In this case, the producer surplus of the first one is 900 minus 500, because he was willing to accept 500, but he was able to sell for 900, so $400 million, let's say. For the second one, it is $300 million. For the third one, it is $100 million, and for the last one, it is zero, basically. So these rectangles again, I mean, it's not drawn that way, but the rectangles again will represent the producer surplus. The rectangle which starts from this area 501, the intersection here, and goes all the way up to 900. So this is the one side of the rectangle, and the second side is this. So 900 minus 500 times 1, which is 400. It shows the producer surplus of the first consumer. So the total amount is 400, 300, and 100, which is equal to $800 million. Again, if I draw a rectangle like this, I mean a triangle like this, the area of the triangle is, well, roughly representing the producer surplus. The rectangles are there, but there are some triangles at the very, let's say, top of the rectangle, which is actually not part of the producer surplus, but part of the area of the triangle. But if I have very large units that are sold, in that case, those triangles will become smaller and smaller, and as a result, the area of the triangle here will represent my producer surplus almost without with a negligible, let's say, overstatement, with a very small overstatement, which is negligible again. See you in the next part. We are close to 15 minutes mark.